Commander Ta stood on the observation deck of Earth's main orbital defense platform, his tall, slender frame silhouetted against the blue-green planet below. His silver uniform, adorned with the golden insignia of the galactic hegemony's diplomatic corps, gleamed under the station's lights. He made no effort to hide his disdain as his gaze swept over the control systems. "Quaint," he remarked to Lieutenant Du, his adjutant, who stood at rigid attention beside him. These defense systems would barely stop a cargo hauler, let alone a proper warship. He spoke loudly enough for the humans to hear, his translator converting his words flawlessly. Captain Kim, the human diplomat assigned to escort the hegemony delegation, maintained a polite smile despite the obvious insult. She was shorter than the aliens but carried herself with dignity in her Blue Earth Defense Force uniform. "Our systems are designed primarily for asteroid defense and space traffic control, Commander," she explained, gesturing toward the main view screen showing Earth's small fleet of Corvette-class ships patrolling nearby. "We are a peaceful planet focused on trade and scientific advancement." Ta gave a dismissive wave of his six-fingered hand. "Peace is a luxury afforded to those under proper protection, Captain. The galaxy is filled with dangers your people cannot begin to comprehend." Lieutenant Du nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the human technology with thinly veiled contempt. "The Urlak pirates would strip this station bare in hours," he added. Earth had been discovered by hegemony scouts only 30 years ago, a mere eye-blink in the timeline of the vast interstellar empire that controlled over 300 systems. For most of that time, the humans had been busy developing their first faster-than-light ships and establishing colonies on Mars and Europa. They had politely declined formal vassalage, a decision that had amused the Hegemony Council at first. But patience was wearing thin, and resources were resources. Captain Kim led the delegation through sliding doors into the station's command center, where a dozen human operators monitored systems. They all stiffened as the alien diplomats entered. Nobody was fooled by the diplomatic assessment label of this visit. "This is our main defense coordination hub," Kim explained. "From here, we monitor all traffic in Earth orbit and coordinate with our lunar base and Mars colonies." Commander Ta walked slowly around the room, pausing to examine screens and control panels. He picked up a tablet from one of the workstations, turning it over in his hands before setting it down carelessly. "Your technology is..." He searched for a word that wouldn't be overtly insulting, settling on developing. What the humans didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Tai wasn't simply here to evaluate. His ship in high orbit carried detailed scans of every Earth defense system, the locations of their handful of warships, and the weakest points in their planetary infrastructure. This diplomatic mission was the final assessment before the Hegemony Council approved what they euphemistically called assisted integration. "Perhaps you would care to see our new energy shield prototypes," Kim offered, trying to steer the conversation toward Earth's more advanced technologies. "If you insist," Tai replied with forced politeness. As they moved through the station, Tai noticed something that briefly caught his interest: a data terminal showing energy readings from Jupiter's orbit. The readings were unusual, showing power signatures that seemed inconsistent with the mining operations humans had reported there. Before he could look closer, a human officer quickly changed the display. "This way, please," Captain Kim said, directing their attention elsewhere. In a private message to Lieutenant Du, using their implanted communicators, Ta noted, "Flag that terminal's data. Something is being hidden there." The tour continued to the shield generator room, where Earth engineers proudly demonstrated a protective barrier that could stop small meteors and radiation. Todd watched with barely concealed boredom. The shield would collapse under the first volley from even the smallest hegemony warship. "Most impressive for your level of development," he lied smoothly. "The Hegemony Council will be pleased to see your progress." During a meal break in the station's observation lounge, Ta sat across from Station Commander Park, a veteran of Earth's early space programs. Through the large viewport, Earth rotated slowly, clouds swirling over oceans and continents. "Your planet is quite beautiful," Tai admitted, this time with genuine appreciation. Resource-rich worlds with breathable atmospheres were relatively rare, which made Earth all the more valuable to the hegemony. We think so, Park replied cautiously. We have worked hard to repair the environmental damage of our industrial age. The hegemony could help you protect it, Ta suggested, his voice slipping into the practiced tone of a sales pitch. Our defensive technologies could shield Earth from any threat. Asteroids, solar flares, or hostile species. At the cost of our autonomy, Park stated quietly. Tay's expression hardened slightly. Membership in the hegemony brings responsibilities as well as benefits. Your continued independence is becoming a concern to the Council. The implied threat hung in the air between them. Park set down his fork and met Ta's gaze directly. Earth has always determined its own destiny, Commander. We value our relationship with the hegemony, but as equals, not subjects. Tay's lips curled into what passed for a smile in his species. Equality must be earned, Commander Park. And frankly, your world has not yet proven its value to the greater galactic community. As the inspection continued to the weapons control section, Taz scans secretly mapped the entire defensive network. Earth's weaponry consisted primarily of kinetic impact missiles and a few energy cannons that were barely more advanced than what the hegemony had used 2 centuries ago. These cannons can intercept incoming projectiles at a range of 10,000 kilometers, explained the weapons officer with pride. Impressive, Ta lied again, knowing that standard hegemony shields could withstand such weapons indefinitely. He asked technical questions, feigning interest while gathering tactical information. Later, as the delegation prepared to return to their ship, Captain Kim presented Commander Ta with a small gift, a crystal sphere containing a perfect miniature of Earth, artistically rendered with glowing continents against blue oceans. A token of Earth's desire for continued peaceful relations, she said formally. Tai accepted it with a slight bow. The hegemony appreciates your hospitality. We will bring our assessment to the Council. He paused, then added with calculated precision. I do hope they find your progress sufficient. The humans understood the veiled warning. As Ta's shuttle departed the station, Lieutenant Du reviewed their findings. Their defenses are exactly as pathetic as our initial scan suggested, Du reported. The entire planet could be secured with just 3 battle cruisers. Ta nodded, watching Earth recede through the viewport. Prepare the full report. Include that anomaly near Jupiter. I want our intelligence division to investigate before we proceed. What Commander Ta couldn't know was that Captain Kim was at that very moment entering a secure communication room deep within the station. After verifying her identity through multiple security measures, she activated a quantum-encrypted channel. Phoenix Actual, this is Watchman. The inspection is complete, she reported to an unseen recipient. They took the bait completely. Taz scans were allowed to see exactly what we wanted them to see. A voice responded, distorted for security. Any indication they detected Project Thunderbolt. Ta noticed the Jupiter readings momentarily, but nothing conclusive. Their arrogance blinds them. They believe exactly what we want them to believe, that we're helpless. Good, the voice replied. The hegemony has underestimated humanity from the beginning. Let's make sure they continue to do so until it's too late. Phoenix out. As Ta's shuttle docked with the hegemony vessel in high orbit, he was already composing his recommendation to the Council. Earth was ripe for integration. Its defenses negligible, its resources valuable. The subjugation would be quick and relatively bloodless. A simple show of force followed by inevitable surrender. In his report, he would note that humans showed an irritating level of pride for such a primitive species, but nothing that couldn't be broken with proper application of hegemony might. They would learn their place in the galactic order, as all species eventually did. What Commander Tai of the mighty galactic hegemony didn't realize was that his entire mission, every scan, every observation, every conclusion, had been carefully orchestrated to lead him to exactly that recommendation. The humans wanted the hegemony to attack. They had been preparing for it for years, and deep in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, something enormous was waiting. The massive shipyard hung suspended in the darkest part of Jupiter's shadow, invisible to all but the most sophisticated detection systems. Its existence was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Here, nestled among the gas giant's outer moons, Project Thunderbolt had taken shape over 15 years of relentless work. Director Park moved through the central observation deck with measured steps, her experienced eyes missing nothing. The deck offered a sweeping view of the Thunderbolt through reinforced windows. The ship was enormous, over 2 kilometers in length, its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Unlike the bulky designs of known hegemony vessels, the Thunderbolt featured smooth, almost organic lines that belied its devastating purpose. "Status report," Park demanded as she reached the main control station. Engineer June looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes testament to the sleepless nights of the past week. "Final weapon calibrations are complete, Director. Shield harmonics at 98% efficiency." Park nodded, allowing herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Run the stealth systems check again. The hegemony delegation just completed their inspection of Earth's defenses. We need to be absolutely certain they can't detect us." "Yes, Director," June replied, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Around them, dozens of engineers and technicians worked at various stations, monitoring every aspect of the massive warship. The observation deck hummed with tension and purpose. These men and women represented the finest scientific minds Earth had to offer, selected for both their genius and their unwavering loyalty. Park moved to a private console and entered her security credentials. The screen displayed a countdown. 72 hours until project completion. The Thunderbolt was nearly ready for its unveiling, after years of development in absolute secrecy. An alert chimed softly, and Park looked up to see Chief Science Officer Han approaching with a data tablet. "The Hegemony scout ship is returning to their fleet," Han reported. "Our observers confirm they detected nothing unusual. Their sensors swept Jupiter's moons exactly as predicted." "And our decoy signatures?" Park asked. "Working perfectly. Their scans show only what appears to be standard mining operations. The quantum camouflage field is performing beyond expectations." Park nodded, relieved but not surprised. The quantum camouflage was one of many technologies they had adapted from the crashed Hegemony scout ship recovered in the Arctic 30 years ago. But unlike the original alien technology, Earth scientists had taken the basic principles and advanced them in directions the Hegemony had never explored. "Director, you should see this," called Engineer June from his station. Park crossed quickly to his console. On the screen, a simulation showed the Thunderbolt's unique propulsion system, a gravity manipulation drive that created controlled space-time distortions for movement. "We've increased efficiency by another 8%, June explained, unable to hide his excitement. "The ship can now transition from standstill to light speed in under 15 seconds. Hegemony ships require nearly a minute for the same acceleration," Han noted with pride. Park studied the data carefully. "Any structural stress concerns with the increased acceleration?" "None," June confirmed. "The adaptive hull compensates perfectly. We could push it further, but I'd recommend we maintain this threshold for optimal system integration." Park agreed and moved to the window again, gazing at the massive vessel. The Thunderbolt represented humanity's greatest achievement and their best hope for survival. Unlike Earth's publicly acknowledged fleet of small corvettes, the Thunderbolt had been designed from the beginning as an offensive weapon. Its primary cannon, running nearly the entire length of the ship, could deliver enough energy to disable a Hegemony battle cruiser with a single shot. Its defensive systems were equally impressive, with layered shields based on principles the Hegemony had apparently never discovered. "Captain Gill has arrived, Director," announced the deck officer. Park turned to see a woman in a simple black uniform enter the observation deck. Captain Gill was tall and carried herself with quiet confidence. As the Thunderbolt's commander, She had been training with her crew for 3 years, running countless simulations in preparation for the ship's maiden voyage. "Captain," Park greeted her with a respectful nod. "Director," Jill returned the gesture. "I understand we're proceeding on schedule." "Yes, final systems checks are underway." Park gestured toward a private briefing room. "Let's discuss the latest intelligence." In the secure room, Park activated a holographic display showing the positions of the hegemony fleet currently stationed at the edge of the solar system. Their diplomatic vessel has completed its inspection and will rejoin the main fleet within 12 hours, Park explained. "Based on their communication patterns, we believe they'll transmit their assessment to the Hegemony Council immediately afterward. And that assessment will be that Earth is defenseless," Jill stated. "Exactly as we planned," Park confirmed. "Our analysts predict they'll move to integrate Earth within the week. The Council won't waste time once they believe victory is assured." Jill studied the holographic ships thoughtfully. "Their overconfidence will be their downfall. Pride comes before a fall, an old Earth saying that appears to be universal," Park agreed. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft alarm. Park accessed the alert on her tablet. "Hegemony long-range sensors are conducting a deep scan of the Jupiter sector," she announced. "Stealth systems at full power." The room fell silent as they watched the data stream. The alien scan swept through Jupiter's moons, powerful enough to detect conventional technology, but blind to the quantum camouflage protecting the shipyard and the Thunderbolt. After several tense minutes, the scan moved on. "They suspect something," Jill noted, "but they don't know what they're looking for." "The crashed scout ship was from a previous generation of their technology," Park explained. "They have no reason to believe we could develop anything beyond what they've seen in our orbital platforms. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage." The project had begun 3 decades earlier when a damaged Hegemony scout ship crashed in Earth's Arctic region. Rather than announcing the discovery to the galaxy, Earth's governments had made the collective decision to keep it secret. They had studied the alien technology, learned from it, and then improved upon it in ways the Hegemony had never imagined. While publicly developing a modest space program that appeared to progress at a normal rate for a young species, Earth had secretly poured resources into Project Thunderbolt. The result was a vessel that incorporated human innovation with adapted alien technology, creating something entirely new. "Director, we've completed the stealth systems check," Engineer Jun reported over the comm. "All parameters nominal. The Hegemony scan didn't even register our presence." "Excellent," Park replied. She turned back to Captain Gill. "Your crew is ready." "They've been ready for months," Jill confirmed. 3 years of simulations and training. They could operate this ship in their sleep. "Let's hope that won't be necessary," Park said with a small smile. "Once the Thunderbolt reveals itself, we won't get a second chance. Everything depends on the initial engagement." They returned to the observation deck, where Park addressed the assembled team. "The Hegemony believes they are dealing with a primitive species barely capable of interplanetary travel," she said, her voice firm. "They see our diplomatic cooperation as fear, our careful development as limitation. They do not understand that humanity has been playing a long game." She gestured toward the massive ship visible through the window. "The Thunderbolt carries not just our technologies but our hopes. When the Hegemony moves against Earth, and they will, they expect an easy victory. Instead, they will encounter something beyond their understanding." Engineer June approached with a final report. "Weapons systems calibration complete, Director. The main cannon successfully passed all simulation tests at 120% of design capacity." 120%. Park raised an eyebrow. "I approved tests at 100%. June looked slightly uncomfortable. "We took the initiative to push the boundaries, Director. The results exceeded our expectations." Instead of reprimanding him, Park nodded with approval. "That kind of initiative is what makes humans different from the Hegemony. They follow. We innovate." A new alert sounded, this one more urgent. Chief Science Officer Han rushed to his station. Director, we're detecting unusual activity from the hegemony fleet. They're repositioning several vessels toward the lunar colony. Park's expression darkened, earlier than expected. They're not even waiting for their diplomatic vessel to return. A show of force, Captain Gill suggested. Possibly. Park studied the tactical display, her mind racing. Or they might be planning a demonstration, a limited strike to show their power. The implication hung heavy in the air. The lunar colony housed over 500 civilians. How quickly can the Thunderbolt be ready if needed? Park asked. Captain Gill straightened. My crew can be aboard and operational within 6 hours. Full combat readiness in 8. Park made her decision. Begin crew transfer immediately. We'll maintain stealth protocols, but I want the Thunderbolt ready to respond if necessary. As the order went out, Park returned to the window, studying the magnificent vessel that represented humanity's secret defiance. For 15 years, they had worked in shadows while presenting a face of technological inferiority to the galaxy. The hegemony believed they were dealing with just another primitive species to absorb into their empire. They were about to learn how badly they had underestimated humanity. Director, called Engineer June. Final system integration is complete. The Thunderbolt is ready. Park nodded, her eyes still fixed on the massive warship. Humanity has always adapted and overcome, she said quietly. Now, we'll show the galaxy exactly what that means. The Hegemony Council chamber was silent as Commander Tay's report concluded. 12 alien dignitaries sat around a circular table, their varied physiologies all oriented toward the holographic display showing Earth's defensive capabilities, or lack thereof. As you can see, Tay finished, Earth's technology is primitive. Their orbital platforms would fall within minutes of a proper engagement. Yet they continue to refuse formal integration into the hegemony. High Counselor Min leaned forward, her scaled skin reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. This continued resistance is perplexing. Most species understand the benefits of vassalage once our superiority is demonstrated. Humans appear to value their independence beyond rational measure, Commander Tay replied. They believe they can maintain autonomy in a galaxy they barely understand. The council members exchanged glances. Earth was small in the grand scheme of the hegemony's territories, but its resources were valuable. And more importantly, allowing one world to defy them could encourage others to question the natural order. Perhaps they require a clearer understanding of their situation, suggested Counselor Ryu, his voice a low rumble. A demonstration. High Counselor Min nodded slowly. Yes, something limited but unmistakable. She activated her communication panel. Bring in Admiral Seo. Minutes later, Admiral Seo entered the chamber. He was tall even for his species, with a military bearing that commanded respect. The Council has reached a decision regarding Earth, Min informed him. Their continued refusal of integration cannot be tolerated. You will take your battle group and conduct a limited operation to demonstrate our power. Seo bowed slightly. What are the parameters of this demonstration, High Counselor? Their lunar colony would be suitable, Counselor Ryu suggested. Minimal loss of life, but the message will be clear. Min considered this, then shook her head. No, if the message is to be effective, it must be unambiguous. Target their primary lunar outpost. Once they understand that resistance means destruction, they will choose survival. Seo showed no reaction to the order, though it meant hundreds of civilian deaths. As the Council commands, when should this operation commence? Immediately, Min decided. No warnings or ultimatums until after the demonstration. Then allow them 48 hours to accept integration terms. It will be done, Seo replied, bowing again before exiting. Luna Base Alpha sprawled across the edge of Mare Tranquillitatis, its domes and connecting tunnels housing 347 permanent residents. Scientists, engineers, and support staff went about their work, oblivious to the fact that their lives had just been marked for termination by beings 12 light-years away. Dr. Han was concluding his shift in the agricultural dome, checking the latest soybean harvest. The dome's transparent ceiling offered a breathtaking view of Earth hanging in the black sky, blue and serene. He never tired of that view, even after 3 years on the moon. Hydroponic levels are optimal, he noted to his assistant. The new nutrient mixture is performing well. A flash of light caught his attention, unusual, since the sun was behind the lunar horizon during this part of the cycle. He looked up just as the dome's automated system announced, "Unknown vessels approaching. Security alert." Before anyone could react, a beam of intense energy sliced through the agricultural dome. Air rushed out into the vacuum of space as warning sirens blared throughout the base. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but for many sections, it was already too late. In Earth's orbital command center, General Lee watched in horror as communication with Luna Base Alpha abruptly ceased. The long-range sensors showed 5 hegemony warships in attack formation above the moon. "Get me visual," he ordered. The main screen flickered, showing a distant view of the lunar surface. Where Luna Base Alpha had stood, there was now a smoldering crater. The hegemony ships hung in space above it, their message unmistakable. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet," reported Communications Officer Jin. Lee's face hardened. "Put it through." Admiral Seo's image appeared on screen. The alien commander showed no emotion as he delivered his message. "People of Earth, the galactic hegemony has shown patience with your reluctance to accept the natural order. That patience has ended. What you have witnessed is merely a sample of our power. You have 48 hours to accept full integration into the hegemony as a vassal world. Refusal will result in similar demonstrations against your major population centers." The transmission ended abruptly. General Lee stared at the blank screen, rage and grief battling within him. 347 lives snuffed out without warning. A demonstration. "Sir," Colonel Park prompted quietly, "your orders." Lee took a deep breath. "Transmit emergency protocol Thunderbolt immediately. Then contact the Earth Union Security Council. Tell them we need to buy time." As Colonel Park hurried to execute the orders, Lee watched the hegemony ships on the display. They remained in position, confident in their power, certain of Earth's helplessness. "You've made a terrible mistake," he whispered to the image, "and you won't live long enough to realize it." In the secured bunker beneath Geneva, the Earth Union Security Council gathered in emergency session. Representatives from all major nations sat around a horseshoe-shaped table, faces grim as they viewed footage of the lunar base's destruction. President Wu, elected head of the Earth Union, stood at the center of the assembly. "This unprovoked attack constitutes an act of war," she stated, her voice steady despite the circumstances. 347 civilians murdered without warning. Defense Minister Kang responded, "Madam President, we must be realistic. Our conventional forces cannot stand against the hegemony's technology. If we resist, they will target Earth directly. So we surrender our planet," asked the representative from Africa, anger evident in his tone. President Wu raised her hand for silence. "No, we will not surrender, but neither will we reveal our true capabilities. Yet." She activated a secure communication channel. "General Lee, are you receiving?" "Yes, Madam President," came the reply. "Has Protocol Thunderbolt been initiated?" "Yes, ma'am. We received confirmation 4 minutes ago. The countdown has begun." Wu nodded. "Very good. Now, we need to buy time." She turned back to the council. "We will appear to consider their terms. I will request a face-to-face meeting with the hegemony commander to discuss the integration process. Meanwhile, I need unanimous authorization to activate Project Thunderbolt." The council members exchanged glances. All present knew what this meant, crossing the line from defense to potential galactic war. "This is not a decision to be taken lightly," Wu continued, "but they have left us no choice. Either we submit to eternal servitude, or we show the hegemony that humanity will not be subjugated." One by one, the council members voted. The result was unanimous. "Very well, President Wu said solemnly. May history judge us kindly. Deep within Jupiter's shadow, the Thunderbolt hummed with activity as its crew rushed to battle stations. Captain Jill strode onto the bridge, where her officers waited at their positions. Status report, she ordered. All systems online, reported her first officer. Weapons at full charge. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. Gill took her command chair, studying the tactical display showing the hegemony ship's position near the moon. They destroyed the lunar base, she asked, though she already knew the answer. Yes, Captain. No survivors. Gill's expression hardened. Then there will be no hesitation when the time comes. They've shown what they are. A communication officer turned from his station. Captain, incoming message from Earth Command. President Wu is initiating diplomatic discussions with the hegemony. We are to maintain position but prepare for emergency deployment. Acknowledged, Gill replied. She addressed her crew. This is what we've trained for. The hegemony believes they're facing a primitive species that will bow to their superiority. In less than 48 hours, they'll learn how wrong they are. Admiral CO reviewed the sensor data from Earth with satisfaction. Their orbital defenses remained on standby, making no aggressive moves. More importantly, their planetary government had requested a meeting to discuss integration terms. As expected, he commented to his second-in-command. They understand their position. Should we prepare landing parties? Asked the junior officer. Not yet, CO replied. First, we'll allow their leaders to save face with their population. The integration will proceed more smoothly if their own authorities endorse it. A communication officer interrupted. Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from Jupiter's orbit. CO frowned. Show me. The display revealed fluctuating energy signatures, partially masked by Jupiter's radiation belts. Mining operations, CO decided after a moment. Our initial survey showed the humans have automated extraction facilities in that region. The energy pattern is inconsistent with mining equipment, the officer pointed out. CO considered this briefly. Dispatch a scout vessel to investigate, but maintain our primary position here. The humans must see our ships when they look up at their moon. The psychological impact is important. As the orders were carried out, CO allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His name would be recorded in the hegemony archives as the admiral who brought Earth into the Empire. A primitive world, perhaps, but rich in resources and strategically positioned. Little did he know that in the shadow of Jupiter, humanity's vengeance was preparing to launch. The 48-hour deadline was not a countdown to Earth's surrender. It was a countdown to the hegemony's reckoning. Admiral CO stood on the command deck of his flagship, the inevitable Dominion, watching with satisfaction as Earth's representatives approached in their shuttle. The small craft looked primitive compared to his massive warship. It had been 47 hours since the destruction of the lunar base, and just as he had predicted, the humans were coming to discuss surrender terms before his deadline expired. Pitiful, he remarked to Commander Tai, who had rejoined the fleet after his inspection mission. They held out longer than most species, but the outcome was never in doubt. Their pride is unusual for their level of development, Tai agreed, watching the approaching shuttle on the view screen. But pride means nothing against superior force. CO nodded, straightening his ceremonial uniform. I will accept their submission personally. Prepare the delegation reception chamber. As officers hurried to obey, the sensor specialist at a nearby console frowned at his readings. Admiral, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature near Lunar Sector 7, he reported. Probably debris from their destroyed outpost, Tai suggested dismissively. The specialist shook his head. No, sir. This is different. It appears to be moving. Admiral CO glanced at the readings with mild interest. Magnify that sector. The view screen shifted to show the dark side of Earth's moon. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but then a shadow moved against the starfield. The shadow grew larger, taking shape as it emerged from behind the lunar curve. What is that? Tai asked. leaning forward. The sensor specialist worked frantically at his controls. "Unknown vessel, sir. It's enormous." Alarms suddenly blared across the command deck. Emergency lights flashed as automated defense systems detected a potential threat. "Full sensor scan," CO ordered, his casual confidence vanishing. Tactical display. The view screen shifted again, now showing a three-dimensional representation of the mysterious object. It was a ship, unmistakably a warship, but unlike any vessel in the hegemony database. Its sleek black hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it difficult to determine its exact dimensions. But one thing was clear: it dwarfed the inevitable Dominion. "Impossible," Ta whispered. "Earth doesn't possess this technology." "Sir, the vessel is 2.3 kilometers in length," reported the increasingly panicked sensor officer. "Energy readings exceed our battle cruiser class by a factor of 5. CO stared at the display in disbelief. "Weapons status." "Charging, sir, but the unknown vessel has already established targeting locks on all 5 of our ships." "Establish communication," CO ordered, fighting to keep his voice steady. "And bring our shields to full power." The massive black ship continued its approach, moving with a grace that belied its size. It positioned itself between the hegemony fleet and Earth, its message clear: to reach the planet, they would have to go through it first. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the vessel," the communications officer announced. "Text and visual. On screen," CO commanded. The tactical display was replaced by the image of a human female in a black uniform, unlike the standard Earth Defense Force designs. She sat in what was clearly the command chair of an advanced bridge, surrounded by officers at various stations. Her expression was calm but resolute. "This is Captain Hannah of the Earth Titan-class warship Thunderbolt," she stated without preamble. "You were saying something about surrender." Admiral CO struggled to process what he was seeing. "This is impossible. Your planet does not possess this level of technology." Captain Hannah's expression didn't change. "Clearly, your intelligence is flawed, Admiral. Perhaps you should reconsider your position." "This is some kind of deception," Commander Tai interjected. "I personally inspected Earth's defensive capabilities. They have nothing beyond simple orbital platforms and Corvette-class vessels." "You saw what we wanted you to see, Commander," Hannah replied. "While you were busy mocking our primitive technology, we were building this." She gestured to the bridge around her. On the inevitable Dominion's command deck, officers stared at their sensor readings in growing alarm. The Thunderbolt's energy signature was unlike anything in their database. "Admiral," the weapons officer reported urgently, "their targeting systems have locked onto our engine cores with precision we can't match. If they fire..." CO's mind raced. This changed everything. A primitive species with a few defensive satellites could be incorporated into the hegemony with minimal effort. But a species with technology that potentially rivaled their own, that required a different approach. "Captain Hannah," he began in a more diplomatic tone, "there appears to have been a misunderstanding. The unfortunate incident at your lunar base was simply a demonstration. A demonstration that killed 347 civilians," Hannah interrupted, her voice now hard as steel. "We understood your message perfectly, Admiral. Now it's time for you to understand ours." A new alarm sounded on the hegemony vessel. "Sir, they're powering up their main weapons array," the tactical officer shouted. "Raise shields to maximum." CO ordered. "Prepare to return fire." On the view screen, Captain Hannah made a small gesture to someone off-screen. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and retreat beyond the orbit of Mars. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response. You dare to threaten the galactic hegemony." CO's composure finally broke. "We represent 300 star systems. Your single ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against our combined might." "Perhaps," Hannah acknowledged. "But your 5 ships will not survive the next minute if you choose to test us. And be assured, Admiral, the Thunderbolt is not alone." As if on cue, the sensor officer called out again. "Sir, We're detecting energy signatures matching the thunderbolts near Jupiter. 3. No 4 vessels. The blood drained from Commander Tay's face as he remembered the unusual readings he had noticed during his inspection. The mining operations near Jupiter. They had been a cover. 20 seconds. Admiral, Captain Hana continued calmly. Power down your weapons and retreat, or face the consequences of your aggression. CO stared at the tactical display in disbelief. If the sensors were correct, Earth had not one but 5 ships of unprecedented power, vessels that had somehow been developed in complete secrecy. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his second-in-command. Pride warred with self-preservation in CO's mind. To retreat would be humiliating, but to engage might be suicidal. He needed time to assess this new threat, to report to the Council. 10 seconds, came Hannah's voice. Power down weapons, CO ordered through clenched teeth. Prepare to withdraw to the designated coordinates. Admiral, Commander Ta protested. We cannot show weakness. We cannot destroy what we do not understand. CO countered. The Council must be informed of this development. On the view screen, Captain Hana nodded slightly as her officers reported the hegemony ship's compliance. A wise decision, Admiral, she said. Once you have reached Mars orbit, you will receive a data packet containing our terms. I suggest you transmit them to your council without delay. Terms. CO repeated incredulously. You are in no position to dictate terms to the hegemony. Captain Hana's expression remained impassive. Your sensors have confirmed our capabilities. Admiral, we could have destroyed your fleet the moment you attacked our lunar base. Instead, we chose to demonstrate restraint, something your hegemony failed to do. As the communication ended, the Thunderbolt maintained its position, its massive form silhouetted against Earth. The message was undeniable. The planet was under protection. In the sudden silence of the inevitable Dominion's command deck, Commander Tai approached Admiral CO. How could we have missed this? He asked quietly. How could they have developed such technology in secret? CO had no answer. His career, perhaps his life, now hung in the balance. The Council would demand explanations he couldn't provide. As the hegemony ships began their withdrawal, Earth's small diplomatic shuttle, now forgotten in the drama of the Thunderbolt's appearance, changed course and returned to its planet. Its mission was no longer necessary. Diplomacy had given way to something the hegemony understood far better, the language of power. On the Thunderbolt's bridge, Captain Hana watched the retreating enemy vessels with grim satisfaction. They're complying, reported her tactical officer. Weapons powered down, course set for Mars orbit. Hana nodded. Maintain battle readiness. They're retreating, not surrendering. Her communications officer turned from his station. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. President Wu sends her congratulations and says, the thunder has been heard. A small smile touched Hana's lips. Send our acknowledgement. Phase 1 complete. As the Thunderbolt held position, its presence changed everything. For decades, humanity had presented a facade of technological inferiority, while secretly preparing for this moment. The hegemony had expected submission and found defiance. They had expected weakness and discovered strength. And this was only the beginning. Admiral CO paced the command deck of the inevitable Dominion, his pride battling with the reality of his situation. The massive Earth vessel, the Thunderbolt, hung in space before him, its black hull seeming to absorb the very starlight around it. His 5 ships had withdrawn to Mars orbit as demanded, but the humiliation burned like acid in his chest. Admiral, the Council is demanding an update, Commander Tay reported, his voice tense. They've received our preliminary report about the Earth vessel, but they're skeptical. CO made his decision. Prepare all ships for combat. Full power to weapons and shields. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Sir, his second-in-command ventured, their ship outclasses our entire fleet. The sensor readings confirm. Sensor readings can be falsified. CO snapped. This is clearly an elaborate deception. One ship, no matter how large, cannot stand against 5 hegemony warships. As the orders spread throughout the fleet, weapons systems powered up and targeting computers locked onto the distant Thunderbolt. On the tactical display, the Earth vessel made no move to retreat or evade. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Thunderbolt," reported the communications officer. "Ignore it," CO ordered. "They're trying to delay us with more threats and deception." Commander Todd looked uncertain. "Admiral, perhaps we should." Enough. CO's patience had reached its limit. The reputation of the hegemony is at stake. Fire on my command. The hegemony ships moved into attack formation, spreading out to target the Thunderbolt from multiple angles. Still, the Earth vessel remained stationary, making no defensive maneuvers. "All ships report weapons locked and ready, Admiral," the tactical officer announced. CO allowed himself a cold smile. Fire. 5 beams of devastating energy lanced across space, converging on the Thunderbolt. For a brief moment, the black ship was engulfed in blinding light as the combined firepower of the hegemony fleet, enough to reduce a small moon to rubble, struck its hull. When the light faded, the Thunderbolt remained intact. A shimmering field of energy surrounded it, pulsing with complex patterns as it absorbed and dispersed the attack without apparent damage. "Impossible," CO whispered, staring at the sensor readings. "Fire again. All weapons, continuous barrage." The hegemony ships complied, pouring energy weapons fire and missile salvos at the Earth vessel. The space between Mars and Earth lit up with the onslaught. For 30 seconds, the barrage continued unabated. And still, the Thunderbolt's shields held. "Sir, our weapons are having no effect," the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "Their shield technology it's beyond anything in our database." Before CO could respond, the massive Earth ship finally moved. With a grace that belied its enormous size, the Thunderbolt accelerated toward the hegemony fleet. "Evasive maneuvers," CO ordered. "Maintain fire." The 5 ships scattered, trying to maintain their attack while avoiding the approaching behemoth. On the tactical display, new energy signatures appeared as the Thunderbolt powered up its own weapons systems. "Admiral," Commander Todd warned, "they're targeting our power cores with some sort of directed energy we can't identify." CO gripped the command rail, knuckles white. "Rotate shield frequencies, divert auxiliary power to forward defenses." The Thunderbolt fired. There was no blinding flash, no explosive projectile, just a precise beam of pale blue energy that struck the smallest hegemony vessel, the scout ship Vigilant Observer. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, every light on the Vigilant Observer winked out. The ship drifted, completely powerless. "What happened?" CO demanded. "Report." "The Vigilant Observer has gone dark, sir," the sensor officer replied. "All systems offline. Life support on emergency backup only." They're completely disabled." Before CO could process this, the Thunderbolt fired again. Another hegemony ship, the battle cruiser Righteous Authority, suffered the same fate, complete power failure without structural damage. "How are they?" CO began, but was interrupted as alarms blared across his own ship. "They're targeting us," the tactical officer shouted. Energy signature focused on our main reactor. "All power to shields," CO ordered desperately. The Thunderbolt's weapon found its mark. On the inevitable Dominion, control panels flickered and died. Emergency lighting activated as the main power core shut down. The artificial gravity fluctuated, causing crew members to float momentarily before the backup systems engage. "Status report," CO demanded as systems failed around him. "Main power offline," his second-in-command reported grimly. "Weapons, propulsion, and primary life support disabled. We're operating on emergency power only." CO struggled to maintain his dignity. "Captain Hana, you have disabled our vessels and requested this meeting. State your purpose." I believe it would be better to discuss this in private, Hannah replied. Your conference room, perhaps. CO led the Earth delegation through the darkened corridors of his ship. Crew members pressed themselves against walls as they passed, eyeing the humans with mixtures of fear and resentment. No one had expected Earth to possess such technology that had rendered the mighty hegemony fleet helpless in minutes. The conference room was illuminated by emergency lighting, casting long shadows across the oval table. Once everyone was seated, Hannah nodded to her officer with the data case. We've come to share some information, Admiral, she began. Information your council has kept from you and most of the hegemony citizens. More deception, Tom uttered. First you hide your true technological capabilities. Now you claim our leaders are deceiving us. Our deception was necessary for survival, Hannah replied calmly. Yours has been used for subjugation. The officer with the data case placed it on the table and opened it, revealing a specialized computer terminal. He activated it, and a holographic display appeared above the table. 32 years ago, one of your scout ships crashed in Earth's Arctic region, Hannah explained. Instead of announcing our first contact with an alien civilization, our governments chose to study the wreckage in secret. Do you know why? CO frowned. How should I know the reasoning behind your primitive secrecy? Because we found this in the ship's database, Hannah said, gesturing to her officer. The hologram shifted to show an official hegemony document, a standard first contact assessment form. The text scrolled automatically with translation. Species, human. Planet, Earth. Development stage, pre-spacefaring. Recommended action. Technology Suppression Protocol 17. Resource value, high. Integration potential. Acceptable labor source after cultural optimization. Commander Ta shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Technology Suppression Protocol was a classified program, not something a primitive species should know about. This single document changed humanity's approach to the stars, Hannah continued. We realized that announcing our discovery would only accelerate your protocol, so we maintained the appearance of normal development, while secretly preparing for the inevitable day when the hegemony would come to integrate us. The hologram changed again, showing images of various alien species and their homeworlds. As we studied your technology, we discovered something else, Hannah said. Earth isn't the first world the hegemony has targeted for optimization. Your council has been systematically suppressing technological development across dozens of worlds for centuries. Admiral CO shook his head dismissively. This is absurd. The hegemony brings stability and protection to less developed species. We guide them toward. You enslave them, Hannah interrupted sharply. You deliberately stunt their growth to prevent them from becoming competitors. She gestured to her officer again. The hologram displayed internal hegemony communications, high-level directives regarding intervention on developing worlds. The documents detailed methods for limiting technological advancement, manipulating local governments, and extracting resources while maintaining the illusion of benevolent oversight. Commander Tay's face had gone pale. These were council-level documents, things he had never been cleared to see. Where did you get these? He demanded. This is classified information. We have our sources, Hannah replied. And before you dismiss this as forgery, each document contains encrypted verification codes. Your own systems can confirm their authenticity. Admiral CO stared at the damning evidence floating above his conference table. If authentic, these documents revealed a pattern of manipulation that contradicted everything he believed about the hegemony's mission. Even if these are genuine, he said carefully, they reflect necessary policies for maintaining galactic stability. Developing species must be guided. Guided? Hannah's voice hardened. Is this guidance? The hologram shifted again, showing footage from a world called Nera. Indigenous inhabitants, a reptilian species, were being forced to mine resources using primitive tools, while the hegemony overseers monitored with advanced weapons. The timestamp showed this was happening currently. Or this? Another world appeared, Tellus, where a humanoid species lived in poverty while massive hegemony harvesters stripped their world of rare minerals. Image after image appeared, each showing similar scenarios across different worlds. Admiral CO found himself unable to look away. These weren't the diplomatic integration missions described in official reports. This was systematic exploitation. "Stop," he finally said, raising a hand. "These could be fabricated. I have no way to verify." "Actually, you do," Hannah interrupted. She gestured to her second officer, who stepped forward with a small device. "This contains access codes for the Hegemony Council's restricted database, codes we obtained from others within your empire who have discovered the truth." CO's eyes widened. "That's impossible. Those codes are changed weekly and known only to council members." "Yet we have them," Hannah said simply. "Because, Admiral CO, Earth is not alone in this fight." She tapped a control, and the hologram changed again. This time, it showed faces, aliens of various species, all wearing the same insignia that adorned Hannah's uniform. "For the past 20 years, we have been building a coalition," she explained. 12 species from worlds guided by the hegemony have joined us. Scientists, military personnel, civilians, all working together in secret. Commander Ta leaned forward, finally understanding. "The Thunderbolt. It's not just Earth technology, is it?" "Correct," Hannah acknowledged. "The Thunderbolt represents the combined innovation of 13 species, each contributing unique perspectives and solutions. Your hegemony has always believed in standardization. The same weapons, the same shields, the same tactics across your entire fleet. We embraced diversity of thought." She stood up, pacing slowly around the table as she continued. "The gravitational weapons that disabled your ships were developed by the Tellurians, whose understanding of spatial mechanics exceeds yours by centuries. The shield technology that absorbed your attacks was created by scientists from Nera, who found ways to convert energy that your engineers never considered." Admiral CO listened in growing shock. The implications were staggering. If what Hannah claimed was true, then the hegemony wasn't facing just one advanced ship or one rebellious planet. They were facing an alliance of species who had every reason to hate them. "The Thunderbolt isn't just a warship, Admiral," Hannah said, returning to her seat. "It's a declaration of independence, not just for Earth, but for every world the hegemony has suppressed." Silence fell over the conference room as CO and his officers tried to process this revelation. Everything they believed about their place in the galaxy had been upended in a single day. "What do you want?" CO finally asked, his voice subdued. "Justice," Hannah replied without hesitation. "The end of the suppression protocols. Freedom for all worlds to develop without interference." Commander Ta found his voice again. "You can't seriously believe the Council will agree to this. One ship, no matter how powerful." "The Thunderbolt isn't alone," Hannah interrupted. "Remember those energy signatures your sensors detected near Jupiter? Those weren't phantom readings. 4 more Titan-class vessels are nearing completion, each crewed by representatives from all 13 coalition species." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "And even now, across 12 other systems, similar revelations are being presented to hegemony commanders. Your council is about to face a coordinated challenge unlike anything in your history." Admiral CO felt the weight of the situation crushing down on him. His 5 ships had been disabled by a single Earth vessel. If there were truly more such ships, and if other worlds were rising up simultaneously, "You should know," Hannah added, her voice softening slightly, "that our coalition is not seeking vengeance. We could have destroyed your fleet today rather than disabling it. We don't want war, Admiral. We want change." She stood, signaling that the meeting was concluding. "You have 12 hours before your ships regain basic power. I suggest you use that time to review the evidence we've provided. When communications are restored, you'll need to make a decision. Will you take the truth to your council, or will you continue to serve a lie?" As the Earth delegation prepared to leave, Commander Ta spoke up. How do we know you won't simply destroy us once our usefulness as messengers has ended? Captain Hana paused at the door. Because unlike your hegemony, we don't believe in unnecessary destruction. The Thunderbolt could have reduced your ships to atoms, but we chose precision instead. That choice defines who we are, and who we intend to be as a coalition. After they departed, Admiral Seo sat alone in the dim conference room, staring at the evidence they had left behind. If Hana was telling the truth, everything he had served and believed in for his entire career was built on a foundation of exploitation and lies. And somewhere deep inside, he suspected she was right. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Hegemony fell silent as Admiral Song concluded his presentation. The circular room, designed to inspire awe with its soaring ceiling and ornate decorations, now felt suffocating to the 12 council members seated at the elevated central table. Above them, the traditional holographic display of the 300 hegemony worlds had been replaced by images of the 5 Titan-class warships, the Thunderbolt and its 4 sister ships, now revealed to the entire galaxy. High Counselor Min's scaled fingers tapped nervously on the ancient wood of the council table. For 8 centuries, the hegemony had ruled unopposed. Now, in the span of a single planetary rotation, everything had changed. These demands are unprecedented, she finally said, her translator rendering her words in the common galactic language. You cannot seriously expect the hegemony to simply surrender its authority over developing worlds. Admiral Song stood calmly before the council. He was older than Captain Hana, with gray at his temples and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. 6 alien representatives stood with him, each from a different world that had joined Earth's coalition. We are not asking you to surrender authority you never rightfully possessed, Song replied. The documents we have shared, verified by your own systems, prove that the hegemony has systematically manipulated developing civilizations for centuries. That ends today. Commander Todd watched from his position near the chamber's entrance. After the Thunderbolt had disabled his fleet, he had made the difficult decision to bring Captain Hana's evidence directly to the council. Now he stood witness to the unraveling of everything he had served. Counselor Ryu leaned forward, eyes narrowed. Even if we accepted these allegations, the practical reality remains. The hegemony maintains order across 300 worlds. What you propose would create chaos. Not chaos, corrected the Tellurian representative standing beside Admiral Song. Change. Controlled, peaceful change. The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed transition plan. A new galactic structure was outlined. Not the hierarchical pyramid of the hegemony, but a coalition of equals with shared decision-making and mutual defense. For too long, the hegemony has classified worlds as developing or primitive to justify exploitation. Admiral Song continued, Our coalition proposes a new framework based on mutual respect and genuine assistance. High Counselor Min's composure finally broke. And if we refuse, will you destroy our worlds with your Titan ships? Is that your version of respect? Admiral Song's expression remained calm. If we wanted destruction, your fleet would already be gone, not merely disabled. We've demonstrated our capability and our restraint. We seek reform, not revenge. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the locations of all 5 Titan-class vessels, positioned near key hegemony worlds. Unlike the hegemony, we will not impose our will through force, Song continued, but we will not permit the continued suppression of developing worlds. The choice before you is simple: adapt to a new reality of cooperation, or become irrelevant to the future of this galaxy. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. For most of them, the revelation of the suppression protocols had been as shocking as the appearance of the Titan ships. The hegemony's highest levels had kept many secrets, even from those who believed themselves to be in power. How do you propose to implement this transition? Asked a younger council member, one who seemed less resistant to the idea. Admiral Song nodded to a human woman beside him, who stepped forward with a data tablet. We have prepared a comprehensive plan, she explained. Phase 1 involves the immediate cessation of all suppression activities. Phase 2 establishes joint committees with representatives from all affected worlds to address historical injustices. Phase 3 creates the new coalition structure, with the hegemony invited to participate as an equal member. Equal. Councillor Ryu scoffed. The hegemony has existed for 8 centuries. Some of these worlds were still using primitive combustion when we first achieved faster-than-light travel. And yet, replied the Tellurian representative, it is our technology that disabled your most advanced warships. Perhaps age does not always equate to wisdom or progress. Commander Ta watched the exchange with growing understanding. Throughout his career, he had been taught that the hegemony's superiority was natural and inevitable, that other species required guidance because they were inherently less capable. The events of the past few days had shattered that belief. High Councillor Min called for a brief recess, and the council members retreated to a private chamber for discussion. As they departed, Commander Ta found himself approached by Admiral Song. Commander, Song greeted him with unexpected respect. Your decision to bring the evidence forward could not have been easy. Tai studied the human admiral carefully. I serve truth before I serve any council. If the documents are genuine, and our systems confirm they are, then much of what I believed about our mission was false. Song nodded. Many within the hegemony will feel the same way once the full extent of the suppression protocols becomes known. Your people aren't inherently cruel or oppressive, but your leaders have hidden the truth for generations. They were interrupted by the return of the council members, their brief deliberation complete. The tension in the chamber was palpable as they resumed their seats. High Councillor Min addressed the Earth delegation with forced composure. We have reviewed your proposal. While the Council acknowledges the concerning nature of the evidence presented, a complete restructuring of galactic governance cannot be decided in a single session. Admiral Song's expression hardened slightly. Every day the current system continues, worlds suffer. How much time does the Council require? After a brief consultation, Min replied, we propose a 30-day transition period, during which all suppression activities will cease while we negotiate the details of the new arrangement. The coalition representatives conferred briefly, then Admiral Song nodded. Acceptable, with conditions. Coalition observers will be permitted on all hegemony worlds currently subject to suppression protocols. Any attempt to destroy evidence or harm local populations will result in immediate intervention. Min clearly didn't like these terms, but she had little choice. Agreed. As the formal agreement was prepared, Commander Ta found himself reflecting on the historic significance of this moment. The hegemony's dominance was ending, not through war or catastrophe, but through the revelation of truth. One of the alien representatives, a being from a world called Nera, approached him. Your decision to support the truth was brave, she said in the common language. Many of your kind will resist the changes to come. Ta nodded slowly. Change is difficult, especially when it challenges deeply held beliefs. But I've come to realize that the hegemony made a fundamental error in our approach to other species. What error was that? The Naran asked. We taught potential rivals to fear us. Tad replied, watching as the council members reluctantly applied their authorization to the agreement, when we should have taught them respect. The Naran considered this. Fear can build empires, but only respect can sustain them. As the signing ceremony concluded, the holographic display changed one final time, showing a new symbol, a circle of 13 stars representing the founding members of the coalition. Earth was just one point in that circle, equal to the others. Admiral Song addressed the council once more. This is not the end of the hegemony, but its transformation. You can join us as equals in building something better, or cling to the past and be left behind. The choice is yours. In the days that followed, news of the agreement spread throughout hegemony space. On some worlds, there was resistance from those who had benefited from the old system. On others, particularly those who had suffered under suppression, there was celebration. Commander Ta found himself appointed as a liaison between the former hegemony leadership and the new coalition. It was a position that suited him, a bridge between the past he had served and the future he had helped create. 6 months later, he stood on the observation deck of the Thunderbolt, now serving as a diplomatic vessel for the Coalition's Leadership Council. Beside him, Captain Hana watched as representatives from 27 worlds, the original 13 plus 14 former hegemony planets, finalized the new galactic charter. "Did you ever imagine it would change this quickly?" Tai asked. Hana shook her head. "We hoped for peaceful transition, but prepared for war. I'm glad our preparations proved unnecessary." "The greatest weapons you possessed weren't these ships," Tai observed. It was the truth about what the hegemony had become. As they watched the signing ceremony, Tai realized that the galaxy had not exchanged one empire for another. Instead, something genuinely new had emerged. A coalition built on the novel idea that diversity of thought and approach was not a weakness to be controlled, but a strength to be embraced. The age of hegemony dominance had ended, not with extinction, but with the humility of equals learning to walk a new path together. And it had all begun because one primitive world had refused to accept the role assigned to it by those who believed themselves superior.